Hello and welcome to Organic Price Books. This is Taylor from Taylor Talks Comics. I got a guest review for you over the Savage Dragon Ultimate Collection from Image Comics and produced by Eric Larson. This is a new release, the first time that Savage Dragon's ever been collected in oversized hardcover, and the first time in a number of years that's ever been collected in color. This is one of my favorite comic book series, and definitely my favorite of the Image Founding Fathers series. So I'm glad to be the one to show you this collection and explain why you need to buy it. But let me move the camera here as I show off why this collection is so great. All right, so Savage Dragon, excuse me while I adjust my camera here, is a series that's rounding the corner to issue number 300 currently, present day. And it's all been penciled, it's all been drawn by and written by Eric Larson. So I know there's a lot of people bragging about how Spawn lasted over 300 issues and broke that Cerebus record, but Savage Dragon, I feel like, is an even more accomplishment because it's still coming from the same mind that originally conceived of it in the same hand drawing it. So I just love this series. But I'm going to show off this book first and show you what makes it so beautiful, and then I'll explain the series and what makes it so great. This is the Ultimate Collection. This is oversized, like I said, so if you take a single issue here, you can see that it's wider than and taller than a single issue comic book. And if you take a Marvel Omnibus, this is a future guest review you can find on Organic Price Books from yours truly. You can see that it's the exact same trim size as a Marvel Omnibus. Same height and width. So it is oversized. And this has a dust jacket. So let me take that off real fast. Here's the flaps here with a picture of Eric Larson and some blurbs from different creators writing great things about this great series. And there's the back. The dust jacket exactly mirrors everything that's on the board of the book itself, which I was kind of disappointed by. This is Image Savage Dragon Ultimate Collection, Eric Larson, Volume 1. Because I always like to have different artwork on the board itself underneath the dust jacket, or it's kind of like, what's the point? Obviously, the point of the dust jacket is to protect the book. I get that. But if you're never going to show off the book or display it in another way without, I don't know. Another thing is that there's so many great double page splashes in Savage Dragon that I thought it would have been cool to show off one of those on here. That's a really small complaint, though. This book is beautiful, and I only have one true complaint of other things. The way it was collected, I'll get to that. Otherwise, this is a 9.5 out of 10 collection that I feel like everybody needs to pick up, especially if you've never read it. It does carry a cover price of $39.99. You can buy this on Organic Price Books website for $35. If you use the code Taylor Talks Comics in the promo code spot, you'll get $2 more off that price, and you'll help support me, which is I'll always be thankful for. It is rated mature, and it collects the Savage Dragon miniseries, The Dragon, number 1 through 5, and Savage Dragon 1 through 8. So to show off how beautiful this collection is, the first thing, the opening end papers. So cool. So this is like the first image you see of Savage Dragon in the comic book. And then the closing end papers is one of the last images you'll find in this book. So it starts off with one of the first images, ends with one of the last images, and that's such a cool idea. I love when the end papers don't match. I love when they do different things with them. And the fact that it like fully immerses you into the story right away from the second you open this book, really cool touch. And then you get this opening title page, and you get this credits page. Eric Larson's name's obviously huge because he's primarily the guy that's doing it. The only help he gets really is with coloring and lettering. Chris Eliopoulos is one of the letterers, and I love his work. My son's actually a big fan of Chris Eliopoulos. Cartooning, he does a lot of cool kids comic books. He helped design like the Xavier Riddle cartoon, fun fact. And then he also did things like the Franklin Richards series for Marvel, and he does a series called like Cosmic Commandos. Really cool cartoonist. But he hand lettered the first 100 some issues of Savage Dragon, and that was one thing that Eric Larson really wanted was somebody hand lettering it. So that's really cool. Then you get a beautiful introduction from Robert Kirkman. He is the COO of Image Comics currently, and is also famously known for writing The Walking Dead and Invincible. Really a beautiful introduction, though, talking about how his memories of reading Savage Dragon as a kid and the impact that those early Image Comics had on him. And then this is your title image, I guess, and then this is the first page issue of the comic book. So my one complaint, like I said, this is a 9.5 out of 10 collection, but at first flip through, I thought that there was no covers and no indication of when a new issue started, and that really drove me nuts. I don't understand the mentality of doing that. I think the Walking Dead oversized hardcovers had that same idea. But it really blows my mind because, like, why you don't have the covers separating the issues. And because the story pacing originally was done as a monthly comic book. And when you do that, like, and Savage Dragon and Walking Dead, for that matter, both are really well known for their cliffhangers at the end of issues. But if you don't have any indication of when an issue ends and it just bleeds into the next one, that cliffhanger loses all its power and just bleeds into the next page. And I heard the argument that comic book creators do that because they want it, when it's collected, to read like a graphic novel, so to speak. But it wasn't originally paced that way. The story was originally paced to be a monthly title with chapter breaks. So that's my one complaint. I wish the covers separated each issue. And Eric Larson, if you're, for some reason, watching this video, I'd love to have a conversation over that with you, with that decision. I could be totally wrong. You've been doing comics for way longer than I've been reading comics, so what do I know? But so at first flip through, I thought there was no indication over when the issues ended, but I did notice that's not the case. They do have title pages with the title on it. So at least there's that. At least there's some sort of indication when a new issue begins. Because another thing that Larson does is this cool, Jack Kirby in the 70s had this really cool effect where he would, he did it in a lot of his issues, but especially in the 70s, where you have like the cover and you have an opening splash page and you get into a double page splash. And Eric Larson's a big fan of Kirby. You can see it in his artwork. And, sorry, my set's breaking down back there. You see it in his artwork, but also in just the way he makes comic books. He does it kind of the same mentality as that. So you still get that indicated, because that opening double page splash is always a treat when you open the comic and then you're just like, boom! Like, I love that about Kirby's work, and Eric Larson does that too. So there is indication of when the new issues separate, and that's why it doesn't bug me so much, but yeah. So it is on a glossy paper too, which is totally fine. The original comics were presented on a glossy paper. It's one of the things that Image Comics really brought to the forefront. Oh, this is the Jim Lee issue. I should be showing off the Eric Larson art. It's on a glossy paper too, so it's presented on the same paper that it was originally published on. So no complaints there. It does have some tight binding too. Like there really isn't an eye. I guess there is somewhat. Maybe. You don't have like the biggest eye there. Maybe after a few reads it'll relax a little bit more. But some of these double page splashes, which like I said, is one of the real treats of reading an Eric Larson comic book. Kind of, you don't have gutter loss, but it does kind of try to close on you. Let's see if I can find one in the middle. Here's one. So you do have some gutter loss in there a little bit, but it's not so bad. I think once you read it a few times, it'll relax more. It won't be so tight. So no big complaints there. But one of the greatest things about this collection, which I was just like blown away by, and I know Larson talked about it on social media about how much this does include, but here's the covers of pinup section. It includes so many extras. So I think these are backup strips back here. Yeah. So all these pages right here are all extras. And I hope that continues. I hope every one of these collections has that amount or close to that amount of extras, because they're just so great, especially in this. So here's the covers collection. So you do get the covers. This isn't like the Spawn compendiums where there's just no covers at all. You do get the covers. They're just all collected in the back. Just so many great covers. Megaton Man, the Ninja Turtles make an appearance in here, which was actually an interesting story because when that happened, Image was publishing TMNT Comics, which was one of the original creator-owned comic books that became a mega hit, obviously. And Image was the biggest publisher to do creator-owned comics, I guess, at the time in the early 90s. But Image was such a big deal that when they brought the Turtles, it was almost like Image was, at that point, the Turtles were kind of falling into, not obscurity, but maybe not so popular. And Image was kind of boosting Turtles, which is an interesting dynamic. But I digress. So many great covers. I don't want to flip through all of them because I don't want to leave any surprises for you. All right, so this is really the coolest thing about this book. Like, this is worth the price of admission alone. Is this next section of work? This is like Erik Larsen's sketchbook of how Savage Dragon came to be, as well as how he produced Savage Dragon on a monthly basis. This right here, at the age of 14, was Erik Larsen's first drawing of Savage Dragon, or the dragon character. This is a later one, and you can see how it's just evolving over time. And then this is one of the first published works, these 3 issues here, that Savage Dragon appeared in. These 2 were reprinted recently in single issue format from Image. And you can see how the character was developing. So in here, you have like footnotes and editorial notes from Erik Larsen throughout the whole thing. So it's not just, he didn't just throw a bunch of images in here. There is kind of a rhyme and reason to each image that's in here, and then him kind of talking about it in present day, going back and reflecting on these images. And a lot of this early portion, you can see these different ways that Dragon's drawn, is the fin. And him talking about he's trying to work out the fin and how it would work. And then eventually settling on something that looks closer to this. And that's the fin that we all recognize. And he even talks about how at first it was kind of floppy for the first few issues until he really settled in on drawing it in a big way and being used to drawing it. So you just get lots of sketch work, a lot of promo ideas that Dragon appeared in, a lot of the heroes and villains that he drew. And just like, sometimes he'll be like, oh, this is the development of Mighty Man throughout the process. This was an image that he did for X Factor pitch with this team on it. The most notable here is Super Patriot, who would become a big character in Savage Dragon. So some of these characters never appeared in anything, and you'll get notes like that, like, yeah, I didn't like this character, or I should use this character more. Some of these did appear in Savage Dragon. A lot of these did, actually, and they just developed over time. But yeah, just so much sketchbook work and footnotes. The footnotes are what makes this really truly great, because you get like a lot of process of how what Erik Larsen was thinking of when he's trying to work out these ideas. So this is thumbnails too, of how he will originally draw the thumbnails before doing the pencils and whatnot, to really pace out the story. So that's a really cool process. And him trying to work out covers too, how the cover's going to look. And there's a lot of good notes too, especially if you're like a creator, a comic book creator. Like these are good process notes of how he comes to make the story. So a lot of great work. I don't want to show off all of it because you need to buy this book and you'll find out for yourself. Back here is where he puts the backup stories. So a lot of the Savage Dragon issues had backup stories that were written by Larsen but drawn by other people. So those are all collected back here. And then if you, yeah, so that's how all this is collected. What makes this series so great? So, like I was talking about with the sketchbook, and you could see that Erik Larsen was working out this character from before he was even working for DC or Marvel. Like, he did some work for DC with like Doom Patrol and whatnot, and then he went over to Marvel and started working on like Spider-Man, and had a long run there. So before all that, he had this character in mind and was trying to develop this character. None of the other Image founding fathers really had that. I think like Liefeld had Youngblood. There's like a pinup of Youngblood that was in an early advertisement before Liefeld did anything for Marvel. It was a great double page splash with the turtles on it. But like McFarlane didn't have Spawn. Nobody else. So he was the only one that really developed this character from like as a kid, and then went on to draw him as an adult and develop this entire story. So Savage Dragon is really like a love letter to Silver, Bronze Age, probably more Bronze Age Marvel comics, but thrown into the ultra-violent, bombastic 90s comic book is how I would best describe it. So you get Bronze Age Marvel thrown into the this era of 90s comics. And as far as 90s comic book art, there's a lot of flack that comes along with that. I think Eric Larson is probably one of the better figure drawers of Image of that era. And when I say figure drawing, I don't mean like, obviously the proportions, men aren't built this way, but just in the dynamic of the way the figures are drawn for this world all match on scale and size. I think figure drawing, when people say that, are off by that a lot, and how they describe that. So he was this hulking beast of a man. He's a cop, but he doesn't know his past, is the Savage Dragon character. He's kind of thrown in, wakes up one day, baptism by fire, literally, and that's the title of that comic. And he wakes up and he doesn't know anything about his past. He doesn't know who he is. He just knows he's this hulking green dude with a fin on his head. And he joins the police force. So really a way different dynamic than you're used to for superhero comic books. Like, yes, he is super powered, but he becomes a police officer, which already gives you a different dynamic. The fact that he's working with the law, not in a way that Batman does, but in a way that he's literally wearing the outfit. He's a police officer. And then you have the aspect of him having this mysterious past, which during the time of this comic book coming out, everyone loved about Wolverine and his mysterious past. And you just get this great cast of characters that are all very distinct looking, all have their own personalities, and character designs is something that Eric Larson truly excels in. All the character designs are great. This is the way they look. No two characters look the same. And there's just the way he draws too. Just like there's so much movement in the way he draws, which is where the Kirby influence comes in. Kirby just had so much energy in the way he drew his characters, and Eric Larson brings that so much into this. And then it's the double page splashes. It's such a fun series, and one of the cool aspects of it is the way it ages in real time. So, this came out in 1992. We're in 2022, at the time of this video, 30 years later, and these characters have aged 30 years if they've survived. No spoilers, but if they're still around, they're 30 years older. In present day, Savage Dragon is actually about Savage Dragon's son is the main title character. So that's a cool aspect too. Like, even in a political standpoint, like the presidents of the United States are actually the presidents in the story. So those have all developed through, from, I guess, Clinton was the president when this first came about, and all the way through Bush and Obama and Trump and now Biden. So those are one of the aspects that kind of plugs us down into reality also, and how that changes. So really cool story. I do want to know how this is collected further, because there were spin-offs like Super Patriot and like Freak Force. I don't think that he'll have those included in these hardcovers, but maybe separate hardcovers would be great. I would love to have that material collected in an oversized format. Super Patriot and Freak Force were just fun titles as well that joined it. And then things like this. The reason why I had this in the background. This was issue 13. This art is all done by Jim Lee. This was a month of Image Comics where the founding fathers all kind of traded books. It's like Eric Larson did Wildcats, I think, and Jim Lee did Savage Dragon. Liefeld did Shadowhawk, I think. I don't know. I can't remember who switched what, but my point is that Jim Lee did the art for this one, and Eric Larson really hated the fact that they had to use it as a numbered issue. He didn't want this to be issue 13. He just wanted it to be maybe like a separate issue, a one shot, if you will. Because Eric Larson had the original goal of matching Jack Kirby, his 102 issues straight of doing the artwork for Fantastic Four. Eric Larson wanted to match that. Obviously, he's far exceeded that by now. So he even went back and did his own issue 13 with a different story that had that number in it, so there would be no breaking continuity over which issues he did. So I don't know if that... my point is, though, this collects the first miniseries of 1 through 5 and then 1 through 8 of the ongoing series. And that 1 through 8 would then... that numbering would then carry on to today. So the next volume will have issue 13 in it, and I don't know if it'll collect both of the issue 13s or just completely ignore the Jim Lee issue. I'm interested by that. I guess if I looked at the Savage Dragon Archives editions, I could probably figure out how he mapped it there. But yeah, so this is going to be a long series. This hardcover series. It collects 13 issues in this hardcover. If we do like 12, 13 issues per hardcover, we're looking at 12 times 12. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at over 20 volumes. So this will be a long series, but it's so worth it. The characters are so great and fleshed out. And I highly recommend it. So like I said, you buy this on Organic Price Books for $35. Use the code Taylor Talks Comics to get an extra $2 off. This has been Taylor from Taylor Talks Comics. You can follow me over on my own YouTube channel if you want. And this has been for Organic Price Books. Go buy your comics there. It's the best place to shop. They will always treat your books in a great way, and you'll be presented with love and care and packaged to your door. Thank you.